Unaware his wife planned to hand him a $600 million inheritance, wicked husband pushed her out of their home. What she did next? He didn't just get angry. He grabbed her suitcase, dragged it down the hallway of their beautiful suburban home, and pushed his wife out of the front door so hard she stumbled barefoot onto the cold porch tiles. That evening, Elena Collins stood there shaking, still holding a small white gift box in her hand. Inside that box was a gold watch engraved, "For the man I trust most." Behind the closed door, her husband Richard paced through the mansion, convinced Elena had been hiding money from him. He was wrong. She wasn't hiding money from him. She was planning to hand him her entire $600 million inheritance. Just hours earlier, Richard had found the sealed envelope in her drawer. He saw his own name. Beneficiary Richard Collins, and the $600,000 million figure. But he didn't read the whole thing. He didn't see the lines explaining this was the draft for her surprise gift, transferring her inheritance to him as a gesture of ultimate trust and love. He didn't see her father's words, thanking him for loyalty. All he saw was a story he built in his own mind, a mind already poisoned by his mistress. She's playing me. She's hiding my share. She's keeping control. So instead of asking her, he shouted, accused, and threw her out. He thought he was winning. What he didn't know was this: the woman standing outside that door in tears was still the one holding the power to destroy or save his future. With one decision, one signature, and one truth he never bothered to read. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's story be pushed out into the cold and forgotten. When you subscribe, you stand with every person betrayed after giving everything. Please click that button now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The sound of a closing drawer snapped through the quiet house. Sharp, sudden, like a secret being sealed. Then silence returned. Morning light spilled across the polished floors of the Collins home, catching on silver photo frames that told stories of perfect smiles, wedding photos, charity galas, vacations. It was the kind of home that looked peaceful, but held too many echoes. Elena Collins, 36, stood still for a moment, her reflection caught in the glass. A woman of grace and quiet poise. Her presence had always been described as soft but steady. She moved like someone who'd learned that kindness was strength. Her dark hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and her eyes, a calm gray, held both gentleness and the faint shimmer of old sorrow. The Collins family home had been a gift from her late father, a man whose wealth came from decades of real estate and philanthropy. When he passed, he left Elena everything: his fortune, his companies, and his foundation. Yet she had never treated it as hers. Money is a tool, her father used to say, but love is the legacy. Now she was about to prove him right. On her writing desk, a neat stack of legal documents waited beside a single cream-colored envelope. The top page bore the words, "Private Trust, Beneficiary, Richard Collins," her husband's name. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she touched it. She had spent months preparing the transfer, $600 million in inheritance funds, to be moved from her personal estate into a new trust bearing his name. It was to be her final gesture of love, a surprise for their anniversary next week, a move that would make him feel secure and honored, the way her father had once made her mother feel. She smiled faintly at the thought. Her phone buzzed beside the envelope. A message appeared on the screen from Martin Hale, her longtime lawyer and family advisor. Martin: Elena, the draft trust agreements are ready for your review. Are you still certain about full beneficiary control? Not a managerial trust? Once we file these, reversing it is complex. She read it twice, her lips parting just slightly as though to respond aloud. Martin had been her father's lawyer before hers, an honest, cautious man in his 60s who always looked out for her best interests. He had watched her grow up, seen her graduate, marry Richard, and become the face of her family's foundation. Elena, texting, "Yes, Martin, full control. It's time. He deserves to feel secure." She sent the message and set the phone down gently. For a long moment, she stood by the window, looking out at the peaceful neighborhood, the trimmed hedges, the gentle sway of trees. But inside, her thoughts wandered to the past. 12 years ago, the scene softened in her mind. A small wedding garden, white lilies everywhere. Richard had been younger, charming, with that confident grin that melted through her doubts. He was not born into wealth, but he had ambition, and she had admired that about him. He told her he wanted to build something real, and she had believed him. After the ceremony, her father had taken her aside and handed her a letter. She could still hear his voice. "Remember, love is proven in what you give, not what you keep." That letter still rested in her jewelry box, folded neatly beside her wedding ring box. Back in the present, Elena opened the drawer under her dresser. Inside lay the keepsake box her mother once owned. Ivory edges, brass latch. She placed the sealed envelope, containing the final draft of the trust agreement, carefully within it, as though tucking a fragile piece of her heart away. "Soon," she whispered, smiling softly, "soon he'll know what I've done for him." The camera of the story, the unseen eye, would linger on her expression, not naive, but pure. The kind of love that believed too easily in goodness. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was Richard. "Richard, won't be home for dinner. Busy night at the firm." She typed back quickly, "That's all right. I'll keep something warm." Her thumb hovered before pressing send. She hesitated, as if part of her felt the distance behind his words, a tone colder than usual. But she pressed send anyway, convincing herself he was just tired. Evening light faded through the windows. The home turned dim, quiet again. Elena folded her father's letter once more and placed it on the nightstand. The camera, if this were a film, would zoom slowly toward the keepsake box inside the dresser drawer. The faintest gleam of the gold lettering on the envelope caught the last of the sunlight. "Private Trust Beneficiary, Richard Collins." A shadow crossed the hallway outside, the faint outline of a man's frame moving toward the bedroom door before stopping. Richard's voice drifted faintly through the half-open door. "What's she hiding in there all the time?" The door creaked softly, then closed again. His footsteps faded. Elena, unaware of his brief curiosity, reached for the framed photo on the dresser. Their wedding picture. She smiled, brushing her thumb across his face. "You've given me happiness, Richard. I just hope I can return it." Her phone lit up one last time on the bed beside her. Another message from Martin. "Martin, understood. I'll schedule the final signing meeting for next week." She typed back, "Thank you. He'll never expect it." The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Outside, the wind shifted, tapping a loose branch against the glass like a warning knock. Faint but steady. Elena looked up, uneasy for a second, but then brushed it off and turned off the light. The keepsake box glowed faintly under the moonlight, holding her greatest gift and her greatest mistake. "Some surprises," the narrator's voice would say softly, "are never open the way we imagine." The sound of silver hitting porcelain broke the silence. A fork clattered hard against a dinner plate. Sharp, startling, too loud for such a calm home. Richard Collins didn't even look up. His eyes stayed fixed on his phone, the blue glow reflecting in his expressionless face. He sat at the head of the dining table, suit jacket still on, tie loosened but his body stiff, as if he didn't belong in that moment at all. Across from him, Elena Collins watched quietly, hands folded, smile soft but uncertain. The table between them was beautiful. Roasted chicken, vegetables, candles flickering, but the air was cold. "Dinner's ready," she said gently, even though he was already sitting there. "I made your favorite. Garlic butter chicken, just how you like it." Richard gave a short nod, eyes still on the screen. He muttered, his thumb scrolled, paused, and for a flicker of a second, a message notification flashed at the top of his screen. The name was Amber. The preview was just one line. "She's holding you back, baby." Elena blinked, her mind struggling to catch up. Amber, but before she could process it, Richard, sensing her gaze, tilted the phone slightly away. He gave a small, forced smile, the kind that looked more like an obligation than affection. "Long day?" she asked softly, breaking the silence, pushing the image from her mind. "Every day's a long day," he said flatly, stabbing a piece of chicken. "Business doesn't wait for anyone." She smiled faintly, trying to lighten the mood. Then I'm glad you're home early tonight. He gave a small, bitter laugh. Early? It's nearly 9, Elena. She bit her lip, her fingers tightening slightly around her napkin. I just meant, I've missed eating together. We used to. He cut her off before she could finish. We used to have smaller problems back then. The words hit like a slap. The tone wasn't cruel yet, just sharp enough to draw invisible blood. Flashback 6. Years earlier, Richard and Elena laughing in their first small apartment. Spaghetti dinner, cheap wine, hands covered in sauce. He lifted her chin and said, Someday, you'll never have to cook again. I'll make enough for both of us. She had believed him. She had always believed him. Back in the present, Elena looked at the man across from her, the man who once promised her forever, and tried to find traces of that boy she fell in love with, but all she saw now was distance. Is something wrong? She asked quietly. He sighed, rubbing his temple. It's just business stress, Elena. You wouldn't understand. She blinked, taken aback. You don't have to talk to me like that. He looked up then, eyes tired, almost irritated. Like what? Like I'm a stranger. Richard pushed his plate away, chair scraping the floor. Look, you run your charities, I run the business. Let's not complicate things. You don't understand the pressure, Elena. Just stay out of it. The words froze her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then softly she said, Richard, I'm your wife, not your employee. He gave a faint snort and grabbed his phone. Exactly. So let's not turn this dinner into a meeting. Elena sat there silent. The candles flickered, their light unsteady. Her heart felt heavy, but she forced a small smile as he left the table. When she finally stood, she started clearing the plates, moving slowly, carefully, as though afraid any sound might shatter the little piece left. Her mind replayed his tone, his eyes, and the name she'd seen. Amber. Later that night, she walked past his home office. The door was half open. Inside, the glow from his laptop reflected across his face. She could hear faint whispers, his voice low, tense. She froze at the doorway, hidden in the hall's darkness. Richard, I know. Just give me time. She trusts me completely. Elena's hand gripped the doorframe. Who was he talking to? What did they need time for? She told herself it was business, a hard client, a difficult negotiation. But the memory of the name Amber pricked at her denial. She stepped back quickly, not wanting to hear more, not ready to believe what she already suspected. She walked down the hallway quietly, her steps slow and measured. In her chest, her heart beat hard enough to echo in her ears. Inside the office, Richard ended the call. His face hardened. He leaned back, opening his inbox, scanning through business messages. Then one caught his eye, an unread email from Martin Hale's office, CC'd to him as a courtesy. Subject, trust account, notification of transfer preparation. He frowned, confusion crossing his face. He clicked it open. It was dense legal jargon. Notification of preparation, fiduciary review. Beneficiary, Richard Collins. He didn't have time to decipher it. He closed it, but the subject line stuck in his mind, planting a seed of suspicion. What is she doing now? He muttered. In the bedroom, Elena sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. She almost typed to her lawyer. Martin, maybe we should wait before finalizing anything. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered to herself, he's just tired. He still loves me. Her voice cracked at the end. She placed her phone aside and turned off the lamp. The room darkened, but the glow from Richard's office under the door stayed on, flickering late into the night. Sometimes love blinds us, just long enough for betrayal to find the door. The office door slammed so hard the sound echoed through the marble hallway. Papers fluttered off Richard Collins' desk and fell to the floor like white feathers after a fight. Richard, calm down, a woman's voice said softly, steady but sharp underneath. Amber Wells, mid-30s, striking, confident, leaned casually against the edge of his desk, her red lips curved in a knowing smirk. She wasn't the type who begged for attention. She commanded it. Her perfume filled the room, faintly sweet, but heavy enough to linger. Richard ran a hand through his hair, pacing near the large glass window overlooking the city skyline. "You don't understand, Amber," he muttered. "She's hiding something. I saw an email last night, a trust account, with my name on it, but she never said a word." Amber's eyes glimmered like she'd just been handed ammunition. "A trust account," she repeated, tilting her head. "In your name?" He nodded, frowning. "Yeah, just a notification. No details. Still, why would she be moving money under my name without telling me?" Amber moved closer, her voice softening into a dangerous whisper. "Because women like Elena don't share control. You said her father left her everything, right?" Richard stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. "Yeah. He didn't trust me much when he was alive." Amber circled him slowly, her heels clicking against the floor like a ticking clock. "Exactly. And now she's doing the same, hiding her power behind a smile." She touched his arm, nails light against his sleeve. "You built her foundation's profits, didn't you? You run the business side." He hesitated. "I manage it. Yes, I tripled the endowment." "Then why are you living under her shadow?" she pressed. "You should be running everything." Flashback 8. Years earlier, Richard at a Collins family dinner. Everyone dressed in elegance and quiet wealth. Her father's approving nods were always for Elena, never for him. When he offered business ideas, they smiled politely, never seriously. He remembered one humiliating line from her father. "Ambition is fine, Richard, but some thrones can't be inherited through marriage." That sting had never left. Amber's voice pulled him back to the present. "You see? She's probably moving that money so you'll never have access. She's putting it in your name to hide it from taxes, or maybe to frame you if something goes wrong. She's keeping control, like they all do." Richard frowned. "Elena's not like that." Amber laughed softly. "Oh, Richard, you're still defending her?" She moved closer, close enough for him to smell the expensive scent on her skin. "If she really trusted you, you'd already know where every dollar is. Instead, she keeps secrets." He stared at her, silent. Amber leaned in, her voice dripping with poison. "Ask her where her money really goes. Ask her why she hides things from you. Or maybe," she smiled wickedly, "you're afraid of what you'll find." Her words sank deep. He looked away, jaw clenched. "She wouldn't lie to me." Amber crossed her arms, pretending to retreat. "Then prove it. Go home tonight. Ask her. If she's innocent, she'll tell you. But if she hesitates..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Richard exhaled slowly, torn between doubt and anger. "You're twisting things." Amber stepped closer again, placing a manicured hand on his chest. "No, Richard, I'm opening your eyes." Their gazes met, his uncertain, hers confident. Outside the office window, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. The city lights flickered against the glass, like warning signs he refused to read. Amber's expression softened, almost tender now. "You deserve better," she murmured. "You've worked for everything she takes credit for. I see you, Richard. I believe in you." He swallowed hard. That was the line that always broke him. "I see you." She leaned closer, her lips brushing his ear. "Go home. Find the truth. And when you do..." She paused. "Remember who really believed in you." Her lips met his. Not a kiss of affection, but of control, sealing the seed she'd planted. As she pulled away, she whispered with a satisfied smirk, "She'll never see it coming." Richard stood there long after she left, staring at the city lights. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger, a man caught between pride and guilt. He picked up his phone, opened his messages, and hovered over Elena's name. For a moment, his thumb trembled, but he didn't type. Instead, he opened his email again, finding the message from last night. "Trust account, beneficiary, Richard Collins." He read the jargon again, but now, filtered through Amber's poison, the words "notification of preparation" felt sinister. He knew he wouldn't get answers from this. He needed the real papers. He was looking for a secret to confirm his fears, but he was about to find a truth he couldn't comprehend. The sound of drawers slamming filled the quiet morning. Sharp, fast, desperate. Richard Collins tore through the master bedroom like a man searching for evidence of a crime. Shirts flew from hangers, Drawers banged open and shut, papers scattered across the bed. His breathing came hard, uneven, the rhythm of suspicion turning into rage. "Where is it?" he muttered under his breath. "Where the hell is it?" Sunlight spilled through the curtains, landing on the framed photo of him and Elena smiling on their wedding day. The contrast was painful, the image of love staring down at the sound of chaos. Amber's words echoed in his mind, the same ones that had haunted him all night. "She's hiding your share. Richard, women like her always do." He'd barely slept. Every whisper of doubt, every memory of her father's disapproval, twisted together like poison vines in his head. Then as he yanked open the lower drawer of Elena's dresser, something caught his eye. The faint glint of brass. He froze. A small ivory box lay tucked at the very back, half hidden under folded scarves. It looked old, a family heirloom. His pulse quickened. He pulled it out, placed it on the bed, and opened the latch. Inside lay a single cream-colored envelope. "Private Trust, Beneficiary, Richard Collins." The words hit him like thunder. His own name, her father's handwriting on the return address. He ripped the seal open with shaking hands. The first page bore a legal header, filled with numbers that made his eyes widen. 600,000, or $1 million. For a second, his breath stopped. 600 million? He whispered. He unfolded the next page, a cover letter from her father's estate, his eyes scanning for the catch. He saw legal phrases, "in recognition of," "gratitude for his." But before his brain could assemble the meaning of the words, his phone buzzed on the nightstand, startling him. Amber. He hesitated, torn between the paper and the call. Then with a growl, he answered, putting the phone to his ear with one hand while still holding the document. "Did you find proof?" Her voice purred through the speaker. He looked at the paper again, the numbers searing into his brain. "Amber, I think she's been moving $600 million. It's in my name." Amber's tone sharpened instantly. "I told you, she's setting you up. That's the classic move, Richard. She's hiding it in your name before she drains the account and leaves you with the tax bill. Or worse, the blame. She's playing you." That question hit deep. The gratitude he'd glanced at. It must be a lie. A legal trap. In his mind, the story rewrote itself. She wasn't gifting him anything. She was using him as a shield. Amber's voice softened. "Don't be naive, Richard. You said she's been distant, secretive. This is your proof. She's using you just like her father always did." His jaw clenched. "You're right." He didn't look down at the paper again. He didn't read the full, beautiful line that would have told him the truth. "To transfer my estate to my son-in-law, Richard Collins, as a gesture of gratitude for his loyalty and love toward my daughter." Instead, his vision tunneled. His anger, fed by Amber's poison and his own deep-seated insecurity, blinded him. He crumpled the document in his fist. "She played me," he hissed. "All this time she's been planning this behind my back." Amber's voice dropped into a satisfied whisper. "Then it's time she learns who she's dealing with." He hung up without another word. For a long moment he stood still, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the crumpled paper. Then slowly he unfolded it just enough to smooth it out, folded it back, and shoved it into his jacket pocket. The bedroom around him was a mess. Clothes on the floor, drawers hanging open, the soft morning light now cold and gray. He looked at the wedding photo again. This time his reflection in the glass made it seem like the man in the picture was staring back at him with quiet disappointment. Richard grabbed the frame and turned it face down. Then with one last hard breath, he muttered to himself, "She thinks she can outsmart me. We'll see who loses everything first." He stormed out, the door slamming behind him. The echo lingered through the house like a warning. Foreshadowing line, ending beat. But downstairs on the kitchen counter, her anniversary gift still waited. A small gold watch engraved with his name and a love he no longer believed in. The front door slammed against the wall so hard the frame shook. "Richard," Elena called softly, stepping inside with a smile, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She carried a small white box wrapped neatly with a gold ribbon, the kind of simple gift that meant everything to her. The soft glow of evening filled the house, and the faint scent of dinner she'd prepared earlier still hung in the air. No answer. "Richard?" she tried again, setting her purse on the table. From upstairs came a sharp sound. Drawers opening, something slamming shut, footsteps pacing. She frowned and climbed the stairs, the gift still in her hand. At the top, she saw him. Richard stood in the hallway, still wearing his work clothes, jaw tight, eyes dark. His hands were balled into fists, and on the dresser behind him, the ivory box lay open, empty. Her heart skipped. "What's wrong?" He turned toward her, voice low but sharp. "Where's the money, Elena?" She blinked. "What money?" His tone rose immediately. "Don't play innocent. The $600 million you've been hiding from me." "I don't— Richard, what are you talking about?" she stammered, stepping closer. "If you mean the trust papers—" "Oh, so you admit it," he snapped. "You've been moving money behind my back. My name is on that account, Elena. What game are you playing?" Her voice trembled. "That wasn't a game. It was for you. I wanted to—" He cut her off with a harsh laugh, bitter and cruel. "Don't lie to me. You think I don't know what this is? You were planning to lock me out, use my name to hide your assets while I look like a fool?" She shook her head, tears already forming. "No, Richard, please listen. It was supposed to be a surprise. Your name was on it because I wanted to—" "Stop!" he shouted, slamming his hand against the wall. "You're unbelievable." Her voice cracked. "Richard, you're scaring me." "Good," he hissed. "Now you know how it feels to be betrayed." She stared at him, eyes wide, trembling. "I have never betrayed you." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out quickly, and for a split second, she saw her reflection in his screen, and the name flashing at the top. Amber, the same name from the restaurant. Her blood ran cold. Elena froze. He turned slightly, lowering the phone, pretending not to notice her glance. "This conversation's over," he muttered. Her voice came out weak. "Richard, who is Amber?" He ignored her question. "Pack your things, Elena." "What?" she whispered. "I said pack your things. You're leaving tonight." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You're asking me to leave our home?" "I'm not asking," he said coldly. "I'm telling you. You've been lying to me, hiding money, manipulating everything since your father died. This house is mine now." Her breath hitched. Richard, this house was my father's." He snapped on. "Don't talk about your father. He never respected me. He didn't trust me. Just like you." "Richard, please," she pleaded, stepping closer. "You're wrong. Everything I did was for you. The trust, the papers. It was all supposed to—" His voice cut through her words like a knife. "Enough! Get out of my house!" She flinched at the sound. Downstairs, her phone buzzed on the table. Her lawyer, Martin, calling. The vibration echoed faintly, unanswered. She didn't move. "Richard, listen to me, please," she begged through tears. "That envelope, it was your gift. I was transferring everything to you." But he wasn't listening anymore. His anger had blinded him completely. He pointed toward the door. "Out!" She hesitated, heartbroken, confused, lost. Then slowly, she set the white box down on the dresser. "I brought you something," she whispered. He glanced at it, the small gift he didn't deserve. "What is that?" She wiped her face and smiled sadly. "Your anniversary present." He grabbed the box, ripped it open, and pulled out the watch. Gold engraved inside with the words, "For the man I trust most." For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Then without a word, he threw it across the floor. The watch hit the wall and fell, the engraving catching the light one last time before landing near her feet. Elena covered her mouth, gasping softly, the sound breaking the air. Richard's voice was final. "Get out, Elena!" She looked at him, the man she had loved more than anything, and realized he was gone, replaced by something she didn't recognize. Without another word, she picked up her purse and turned toward the door. As she stepped outside barefoot, the cold pavement stung her feet. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, whispering, watching. Tears blurred her vision as she walked down the porch steps, clutching her purse tightly. Behind her, Richard slammed the door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home echoed on the porch. Elena stood on the cold pavement, The watch, her final gift, lying broken just inches from her feet. She left it there. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Martin. She ignored it, pulling her keys from her bag, and kept walking. That night, the man who thought he'd won everything had just sealed his own fate, while the woman who'd lost everything had just found her weapon, the truth. The motel door slammed behind her, echoing through the narrow hallway like a final goodbye. Elena stumbled inside, clutching her purse to her chest as though it could still hold her life together. The dim yellow lamp flickered, throwing uneven shadows across the cheap wallpaper. The air smelled faintly of dust and loneliness. Her hands shook as she dropped her purse on the bed. For the first time that day, she let herself breathe, a breath that broke halfway, collapsing into a sob. She pressed a hand over her mouth, muffling the sound. The silence that followed was worse. Her eyes landed on the small manila folder she'd carried from her car, her personal files. She opened it slowly, revealing a single photocopy of the trust agreement draft, the same one she had placed in the box for Richard. Her father's signature on the original letterhead stared back at her, steady, deliberate, loving. To Richard Collins, in recognition of his loyalty, love, and devotion to my daughter. Her fingers trembled as she traced the line. A soft, broken whisper escaped her lips. Devotion? He doesn't even know what that word means. She sank onto the bed, the weight of every memory pressing down. Flashback, 5 years earlier, sunlight, laughter, and vows. Richard stood before her in a white suit, his voice trembling as he said, "You're my everything, Elena. I'll protect you until my last breath." Her smile was bright, full of belief. Her father had been there too, watching quietly from the front row. After the ceremony, he had taken her aside, his voice low and kind. "You'll know who truly loves you when you give them power," he said. "Some people shine under it, others burn." At the time, she thought he was warning her about the world, not the man she married. The memory faded. The motel room came back into focus, small, lonely, painfully real. Elena reached for her phone. Dozens of missed calls from her lawyer, Martin Hale. She wiped her tears and pressed call back. "Martin?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Elena," he said gently, his tone full of concern. "I heard what happened. I've been trying to reach you. The final signing meeting for the trust is scheduled for tomorrow. Obviously, I have canceled it. The transfer is stopped." She looked at the document again. The proof of her love now turned into the seed of her pain. "I know," she said softly. "Thank you, Martin." "Elena, what he did is, it's grounds. But the trust, the papers, does he have them?" "He has his copy of the draft," she whispered, "the one I was going to give him." "Good," Martin said, his voice hardening slightly. "The final fileable documents are secure with me. He has nothing but paper and a very bad temper." "Martin," she said, a new thought forming. "Those papers, they're evidence now, aren't they? Evidence of intent." There was silence on the line. "Yes, Elena," Martin said carefully. "They are." "I'm not a fool, Martin," she said, her voice gaining a thin layer of steel. "He has a mistress. Her name is Amber. I think he's been doing more than just yelling." When the call ended, she sat motionless, staring at the blank wall. Her tears had stopped, not because the pain was gone, but because something inside her had gone quiet. The trust was no longer about love. It was a mirror, one she would use to show Richard and the world the truth he'd never wanted to see. She whispered into the emptiness, "You were the only one I ever trusted, and you threw me away." The clock ticked on the nightstand. Each tick felt louder than the last, counting down the pieces of her old life. After several long minutes, she stood up, wiped her face, and crossed to the small desk. She opened her laptop. The screen light hit her face, pale, calm, unreadable now. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed slowly, "Private corporate fraud attorney, confidential." Her hand paused above the enter key. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but this one didn't come from heartbreak. It came from awakening. She hit enter. The search results filled the screen. Names, firms, contacts. For the first time in days, she exhaled without shaking. Her reflection in the screen no longer looked like a broken woman. It looked like someone preparing for something deliberate. And somewhere across town, while she searched for justice, Richard was already building the lie that would destroy him. The printer whirred to life, spitting out one page after another, contracts, emails, and financial reports. The sound filled the lawyer's office like the rhythm of quiet warfare. Elena sat at the long wooden table, her posture straight, her face calm. 2 weeks had passed since the night Richard threw her out. In that time, her grief had changed shape. It wasn't pain anymore. It was purpose. Martin Hale, her lawyer, stood across from her, holding a file thick with documents. He was in his early 60s, kind eyes, graying beard, a man who never raised his voice, but always made himself heard. He looked at her carefully. "This is a divorce filing, Elena. But what you're asking for goes beyond that. Are you sure you want to do this?" Her eyes stayed fixed on the documents. "Yes, he manages my father's company. He has access to the foundation. I want to know what he's done." Martin exhaled. "Then we'll need someone to dig deeper, quietly, someone who can find what we can't." A black car pulling up outside a small private office building. A man in his 40s stepped out. Caleb Turner, a private investigator, former police known for finding truths people tried to bury. He shook Elena's hand firmly when they met. "Mrs. Collins," he said, "I understand you're not looking for revenge. You're looking for proof." Elena nodded slowly. "Proof is revenge." His expression softened, respect in his eyes. "Then I'll get you everything you need." Over the next few days, a quiet storm began to build. Elena kept her routine simple, visiting the foundation, attending charity meetings, smiling for the public. On the surface, she looked like a woman healing, but underneath, she was gathering ammunition. Caleb sent her updates daily. The evidence came piece by piece, each one colder, uglier than the last. One night, her phone buzzed. A new message from Caleb. "You'll want to see this in person." She met him in Martin's office later that evening. The rain outside drummed softly against the windows. Caleb laid a folder on the table. "He's been using your family foundation's funds, Mrs. Collins. Money meant for charity, redirected into his personal accounts. And," he paused, sliding a photo forward, "into hers." Elena's breath caught. Amber Wells, the mistress, stood smiling in the photo, wearing Elena's necklace. A delicate gold pendant shaped like a heart, the one Richard had given her on their 5th anniversary. For a long moment, Elena said nothing. Her hand hovered over the picture, trembling slightly. Then her voice came, quiet but razor sharp. "Perfect." Caleb nodded. "There's more. He's been falsifying reports for months, claiming the foundation's losses are market-related, when in reality, he's been pulling funds to cover debts." Martin frowned, flipping through the documents. "This is criminal, Elena. These could lead to federal charges, fraud, embezzlement." Elena looked at the window, her reflection faint in the glass. "Then we'll let the truth do what anger couldn't." Montage. The silent war. Elena signs papers under dim light, her expression calm. Caleb photographs hidden documents in Richard's office after hours. Martin reviews bank records, highlighting suspicious transfers. Elena watches Amber's social media feed, noticing luxury items that didn't exist a month ago. A courier delivers a sealed envelope labeled "Confidential Forensic Audit." Every step was quiet, every move deliberate. A week later, Elena sat in her small apartment, reviewing the final folder. Inside were photos, messages, bank statements, all threads of the same web Richard had built around his lies. She reached the last page, a screenshot of a message between Richard and Amber. "Amber, once you get full access to the trust, we're untouchable." Richard, "She won't see it coming." Elena closed the file slowly. Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. She whispered, "Neither will you." The next morning, she arrived at Martin's office again. Dressed in soft beige, no trace of pain left on her face. She placed a thick folder on his desk. Everything organized, labeled, airtight. Martin adjusted his glasses, flipping through the documents. "This is enough to bring him down. I'm not bringing him down, Elena said calmly. I'm letting him destroy himself. Martin looked up, puzzled. What do you mean? She leaned forward. We filed the divorce, but we hold the fraud charges. We let him think he's fighting over a house. The moment he lies in a sworn deposition, the moment he submits one more fraudulent document to the court, it will trigger the criminal investigation automatically. By the time he realizes it, it'll be too late. Martin stared at her for a long second. Then he nodded slowly. You really are your father's daughter. Elena smiled faintly. The first true smile in weeks. She slid the final set of documents into a folder labeled in neat handwriting. Court filing, dissolution, and trust violation. The camera of the mind, the invisible eye, would linger there. On her hand as she pressed the folder shut, sealing both her revenge and his fate. That night in the quiet of her apartment, she poured herself a glass of water and looked out at the city lights. Each one shimmered like a secret waiting to be revealed. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Caleb. He's moving money again, trying to hide it. She didn't reply. She only whispered, Good. Keep going. Her reflection in the window didn't look like a broken woman anymore. It looked like someone in control. Calm, dangerous, and ready. Foreshadowing line, ending beat. The next time she saw Richard Collins, it wouldn't be across a dinner table. It would be across a courtroom. The gavel struck once. Sharp, echoing, final. All rise, the bailiff announced, voice cutting through the murmurs of the packed courtroom. Richard Collins walked in with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He wore an expensive charcoal suit, his arm casually around Amber Wells, who looked proud, almost victorious. Photographers snapped from the hallway as the pair took their seats at the defendant's table. Across the room, Elena Collins sat beside her lawyer, Martin Hale, calm and poised. Her hair was neatly tied back, her clothes simple, beige and understated. But her presence drew quiet respect. She didn't look at Richard, not once. The judge entered and the tension in the air thickened instantly. Court is now in session for the matter of Collins versus Collins, the clerk announced. Richard leaned toward Amber, whispering, This will be over in an hour, then we'll walk out free. Amber smiled faintly, though her fingers fidgeted. She wasn't as sure as he was. The first 20 minutes passed with dry legal exchanges, property lists, financial statements, procedural discussions. Richard grew restless. He expected a quick resolution, another chance to humiliate Elena publicly. But then Martin stood and walked to the center of the room. Your Honor, he began, his tone controlled but heavy with precision. Before we proceed with the division of assets, I'd like to submit a document into evidence. Exhibit A. The bailiff took the folder and handed it to the judge. Richard leaned back lazily, muttering, Here we go again. The judge flipped through the pages. This is a draft for a trust agreement? Martin nodded. Yes, Your Honor. A legal trust agreement, drafted by my office on Mrs. Collins' orders. It outlines her plan to transfer $600 million of her personal inheritance to her son-in-law, Richard Collins, as a gesture of gratitude and love. The room fell silent. A gasp rippled through the courtroom, followed by the frantic clicks of journalists' pens. Richard blinked, his smug expression faltering. What? Amber's hand slipped from his arm. Martin continued, each word like a scalpel. Mrs. Collins intended to finalize this transfer as a surprise for her husband on their anniversary. Unfortunately, before the signing meeting could occur, Mr. Collins expelled her from their home. Richard shot up from his seat. That's a lie. She was hiding it. Sit down, Mr. Collins, the judge warned. Is this document the proof you've been citing in your depositions? Richard paled. Martin didn't flinch. Mr. Collins' proof of her betrayal was, in fact, the greatest act of love she could offer. Which brings us to Exhibit B, Your Honor, the real reason we are here. He handed another file to the clerk, a full forensic audit of the Collins Foundation, which Mr. Collins managed. Richard's face drained of color. These documents, Martin said, his voice rising, include bank statements, text messages, and authorization forms, all signed with Mrs. Collins' forged signature. Each transaction tied to Mr. Collins' private accounts, including one that funded a personal property for Ms. Wells. Amber froze. That's impossible, Richard yelled. Those were business reallocations. Martin looked directly at him. With your wife's forged consent? While you were texting your mistress, she won't see it coming? Richard's mouth opened, but no words came out. Elena stood then, calm and deliberate. Her voice carried softly, but every word landed like thunder. I wanted to make you the richest man alive, Richard, she said, meeting his eyes for the first time since that night. But you were so busy stealing pennies you didn't notice. You made yourself the poorest. The judge watched her closely. Mrs. Collins, is it true that this trust was intended for your husband? Yes, she said quietly, until he decided I was worth less than his greed. The courtroom stayed silent. Even the journalists stopped writing. Amber tried to speak, her voice breaking. Richard, tell them. Quiet, he snapped at her. But it was too late. The damage was already done. Martin stepped forward again. Your Honor, we respectfully request that the divorce be granted and that the court refer this matter, the criminal matter, to the district attorney. We have evidence of forgery, embezzlement, and trust violation. The judge nodded slowly, flipping through the audit. His face hardened. Mr. Collins, are you aware that perjury in a sworn deposition is a felony? You stated under oath you had no other partners. Richard stammered. That's not... The gavel struck the desk once more. Mr. Collins, the judge said firmly, you are hereby referred for criminal investigation for financial fraud and embezzlement of charitable funds. You will surrender your passport and await the official review. Gasps filled the room again. Richard's face twisted, part disbelief, part fury. He turned toward Elena, his voice trembling. You set me up. Elena shook her head. No, Richard, you did that yourself. Amber stood slowly, panic spreading across her face. Richard, what about me? He glared at her. You stay out of this. But Amber's fear was visible now. The kind of fear that comes when the game you thought you were winning turns to ash. The judge's gavel struck again. Court adjourned. As the room erupted in whispers, Richard sank into his seat, shoulders slumped. Cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed. Amber quietly stepped away from him. Elena, still calm, gathered her papers and turned to leave. Martin followed, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. You did it, he murmured. She gave a faint smile. No, she whispered. The truth did. As she walked toward the courthouse doors, her heels clicked softly against the marble floor. Steady, unhurried. Outside, sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, warm against her face. But just before stepping out, she paused, sensing movement behind her. Richard stood at the end of the hallway, pale, shaking. His voice, low but furious, followed her like a shadow. This isn't over, Elena. She didn't look back. It's already over, she said quietly. Then she walked away, her silhouette fading into the light. Foreshadowing line, ending beat. But as justice found him in court, Richard still had one thing left to lose, and fate was about to take it. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the windows of the once grand mansion. Inside, the lights were off. The only glow came from a dying fireplace and the streetlight flickering through half-closed blinds. The house, now seized as part of the criminal investigation, was cold. Boxes were being dragged across the floor, but not by Richard, by court-appointed liquidators. Amber Wells stood near the doorway, throwing clothes and jewelry into a suitcase. Her movements were fast, sharp, and angry. Richard Collins sat on the couch motionless, a court officer watching him from the hall. His face was pale, his hair unkempt, his suit wrinkled. Papers lay scattered on the coffee table. Bank statements, court notices, frozen accounts. Every document screamed the same word. Ruin. Amber snapped the suitcase shut. You said she had nothing, she said bitterly, her voice slicing through the quiet. Richard didn't respond. He just stared at the empty whiskey glass in his hand. I believed you, Amber continued, pacing. You promised me the trust, the house, the future. You said she was weak. Richard finally looked up, eyes hollow. I was wrong, Amber laughed, a humorless, bitter sound. You were always wrong. She yanked her coat from the rack and slung her purse over her shoulder. Do you even know what they're saying about you out there? He didn't answer. She stepped closer, her tone cruel now. They're calling you the man who forged his wife's love into fraud. He flinched. Congratulations, Richard, she spat. You finally got the attention you always wanted. Then she walked out, heels clicking across the marble floor, the front door slamming behind her like a final verdict. The silence that followed was deafening. For a long moment, Richard just sat there, staring at nothing. The mansion that once made him feel powerful now felt like a prison. Every shadow reminded him of something he'd lost. A laugh, a touch, a promise. He reached for his phone out of habit, but the screen glowed only with unanswered calls from lawyers and one last text from Amber, sent hours ago. Don't call me again. I'm meeting with the DA. He sighed and leaned back, eyes tracing the ceiling. The cracks in the plaster seemed deeper now, spreading like the truth he'd tried to bury. He closed his eyes and his mind drifted backward. Not to the courtroom, but to a smaller, darker room from decades ago. Flashback. His childhood. A younger Richard sat at a wooden table, maybe 12 years old, hands trembling as he tried to count change. His father, a harsh man with tired eyes, loomed above him. You think people care about honesty, boy? His father barked. No, they care about power, about money. Richard looked up timidly. But Mom says people respect kindness. His father slammed a hand on the table. Kindness won't pay bills. Money will make them respect you. Remember that. The words hit hard, the kind that don't fade, just wait. Back in the present, Richard opened his eyes slowly. He realized he'd spent his entire life proving that lesson right, until it destroyed him. He'd become exactly what he hated, a man defined by greed. The fireplace crackled weakly, then died out completely. He sat in darkness now, surrounded by everything he thought he wanted, and yet he had nothing. He stood up, walking toward the window. Outside, the rain poured down heavy, washing over the driveway where Amber's car lights disappeared into the distance. He stared at his reflection in the glass. Tired, broken, almost unrecognizable. Then his phone buzzed again on the table. He hesitated, picked it up and looked at the screen. A news alert glowed brightly, mocking him. Elena Collins launches $100 million charity for betrayed women. Empowerment born from heartbreak, founder says. Richard's thumb hovered over the screen. His eyes darkened as the words sank in. He sank back into the couch, staring into the void. The irony burned. The woman he had thrown away barefoot on the porch now stood taller than ever, and she had used her pain to build something beautiful. For the first time, his eyes welled with tears. Not from guilt, from realization. He had lost everything, not because she took it, but because he'd never known what truly mattered. The sound of rain outside deepened, the house creaking in the storm. One of the framed photos on the wall, their wedding picture, tilted, then slid off its hook, shattering on the floor. He stared at it for a long moment, the glass fragments reflecting his face in broken pieces. He whispered to no one, I should have read the whole letter. The storm roared louder, wind pressing against the windows as Richard's figure slowly faded into the shadows. The camera, if there were one, would pull back now, showing the once golden mansion swallowed by darkness. Lights off, rooms empty, wealth meaningless. Only silence remained, and the faint echo of a woman's laughter far away, carried by memory. But the world hadn't heard the last of Elena Collins. Her next move would expose more than just her husband's lies. Applause filled the grand hall, lights glittering across chandeliers like fragments of sunrise. The charity gala was in full swing. Elegant gowns, quiet laughter, glasses clinking. But at the center of it all stood Elena Collins, radiant and calm, her presence commanding attention without effort. A banner stretched behind her. The Elena Collins Foundation, rebuilding trust, restoring dignity. The same woman who had once been cast out barefoot now stood before the city's elite, poised and unshaken. As the applause faded, Elena stepped up to the microphone. Cameras flashed. The crowd waited. Her voice came soft, steady, every word carrying the weight of experience. A year ago, I believed love was proven by what we give, she began, her eyes sweeping across the room. But I learned that true wealth isn't what you keep. It's what survives when love is gone. A hush settled over the audience. She glanced toward the glass display beside her, a single item resting within, the gold watch Richard had thrown aside that night. Polished now, shining under the spotlight, the engraving still clear. For the man I trust most. Elena smiled faintly. This watch is the only thing I didn't sell, donate, or rebuild. It reminds me that blind trust is the most expensive thing a person can own. The audience listened, some in quiet admiration, others in reflection. Montage sequence. Elena shaking hands with donors, confidence in every gesture. A young woman hugging her in tears, whispering, "Thank you." Press cameras capturing her as she exits the stage, the city skyline glowing behind her. Across the street, in the shadows, a familiar figure stands. Richard Collins. He wore no suit now, only a simple jacket. His face looked older, hollowed by the months of trials and public disgrace. He was out on bail, awaiting sentencing. The man who once commanded power now hid from the very world he had tried to impress. He watched Elena through the glass doors, eyes full of regret and recognition. Inside, she laughed with guests, a sound pure and light, untouched by bitterness. For a brief moment, their eyes met through the reflection of the window. She didn't flinch or look away. She simply gave a small nod. Not of forgiveness, but of closure. Richard lowered his gaze. Then silently, he turned and walked away into the night, swallowed by the city's lights. Back inside, Elena stood near the display again. The crowd had moved to dinner, leaving her alone with the watch. She reached out and gently adjusted its position inside the case. Her reflection merged with it, the woman she had been and the one she had become. Her voice, soft, thoughtful, closed the night. He lost the fortune I wanted him to have, and the woman who was the real treasure. The music swelled gently, strings and piano, as she walked off stage, the lights dimming behind her. The camera of the mind would linger on the watch, glowing beneath the glass like a buried heart rediscovered. But what she didn't know was that her story was only the beginning for others like her, women who would soon rise from their own ashes,